Did you know you can build an API in seconds without setting up servers or worrying about scaling? That's the magic of Azure HTTP Trigger Function. Let me show you how easy it really is. Azure HTTP Trigger Functions are a powerful tool for building serverless applications. They let you run code on demand without managing servers or worrying about scalability. This means you can focus on writing the logic that matters while Azure takes care of the infrastructure behind the scene. Wait. I don't know Azure Function itself. First, I need to know Azure Functions. Is that what you're saying? Alright, let's get into what is Azure Function. This video is part of AZ204 video series and we are focusing on Azure Functions. This is the website specifically built for AZ204 video series and we are referring to this study guide, and if you scroll down, we're talking about all of these things. So next couple of videos that will focus only on implementation of Azure Functions, different functions that they are required for the AZ204 exam. Alright, now in this video we'll be talking about Azure Functions and HTTP Trigger Function. So Azure Function app is like a container or home where all your serverless functions live. Each function inside it is a small piece of code that does one specific job, like sending an email, processing a file, or responding to a HTTP request. The function app provides the environment like runtime, scaling, monitoring, and each function is your worker doing its assigned task. The beauty is you don't need to worry about servers. Azure runs the functions only when it is required or needed, and you only pay for the time it runs. Let's take a simple analogy. So think of Azure Function as a restaurant kitchen. The function app is a kitchen itself. It has all the tools, setup, and staffs to cook. Each function is like a chef who specializes in one dish. Like for example, one chef makes only pizza. Another chef makes salad. Another one makes desserts. When a customer, which is a trigger, an event that we will be talking about, right, places an order, the right chefs starts cooking. So for example, a customer places an order of, let's say for example, a customer comes and order a pizza. So the chef who specializes for pizza comes and kicks in and start making pizza. Now, when there is no order, the chefs don't cook, they just wait. So Azure automatically calls the right chef, which is here function, inside your kitchen. Kitchen is nothing but your function app, only when it is needed. Alright, let's get into the demo and understand more. Alright, so this is the website and here is our demo. So first let's see what features we have and how functions are going to help us to achieve all of those features. This is the website. I'm going to log in. I have to click on the login. And I'm going to log in as an admin. So myself an admin and I'm going to log in. So because me being an admin, I have certain privileges. So when you get the code, I will let you know what you have to do. You just make yourself admin. Alright, that's the only thing that you need to do in the roles table. Now I'm an admin. Let's say I wanted to create slots. I know two of the users already requested for a slot, even though that was a demo, but I promise once we finish all of this function, I will create the real slots where you can opt for us and we will all connect because you might have more questions on durable functions. I wanted to create a slot for tomorrow. Let's say tomorrow 5:55, just for namesake, okay? Just for understanding purpose. So I created a slot. Maybe I will create more slots. I might have the slot 9 AM. Alright. So if we go to available slots, these are the two slots. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and log in as a customer, like users, like you guys. So in order to do that, I need to be a user. So I will use a different login. This one. This is based on Google Identity Provider. That's why you can see Google coming in. And I will be covering those things in the upcoming videos for the Entra external ID. Now, me as a user, I'll go and check what are the slots available. Let's say I wanted to take the slot. I'm requesting for the slot and I will provide some details why I want the slot. Fair enough, right? I will submit the slots. And if I go to my request, so I requested for a slot. If I go to my slots, my request, see, it's showing up what I did and it's in pending state. Okay. Now I can't go to any of those admin servers, but I'm going to log out. Okay. I'm going to log out. And what happens if admin needs to see what's going on? So I will log in as an admin. If I go to dashboard, I can see who has requested for it. So the person name was TechBlock, which was me, and it's in the pending state. So I can approve, I can cancel it, I can view it. So view is basically if more people opted for a particular one, I'll see all of those people here. All of you guys, when you request, I will see all of your information here. Now coming back to this, here is the place where Azure Function comes into picture. So I can build an API to make this request approved, but I don't want to do that because I wanted to write a small function that approves this. Because we are learning all of these things as part of one application, sometimes I need to make some decision just to utilize certain features in terms of Azure services. So what I've decided is, when I approve this request gets approved. However, the user needs to get an email that this is approved. For that piece of information where the email is sent, I wanted to use the Azure Functions. Okay, so before I click on approve, we need a piece of code that sends an email, and I want that to be an Azure function, HTTP trigger. What is HTTP trigger? HTTP is a protocol, and anything that you trigger like get, put, post, patch, all of these things are HTTP method. So the trigger is you are going to invoke a URL, and that's why this is called HTTP trigger. Okay, let's build from scratch. So I have used the function app, which is already built. All of these functions are built. Okay, so but we will go over one by one. So let's assume you have a blank solution and you're going to create a new project. Add new project, and you will be choosing Azure Function. So I choose Azure Function, say next, and this one I'm going to write this as function app demo. Okay, just for understanding purpose. So I'll say next. So it will ask me what version that we are going to use, and these days only isolated versions are supported. So we are going to use .NET 9 isolated version. .NET 10 will come only in November 2025, so we will choose this. That's the latest one. And here it will show you these many functions. So functions are categorized as input, output, and some orchestration function, and this is event based function. So we can't cover every single of this, but we will try to cover important things. In this case, it's a HTTP trigger, and you see this authorization level. There are 3 authorization level. Anonymous means anyone can invoke a function. Function means there's a specific function code. At the function level, there is a permission. Admin means it's for the whole rights for the whole function app. So we'll choose function level and we will create. And I'll show you what it is when we deploy this to the Azure function. See, when we created this, I'm going to minimize this. This is the application. Okay, there are important parts that you need to understand. Okay, only those things we will be covering. So what it is creating, it is a piece of code. Okay, this is a piece of code, and here it looks exactly like a web API, but it just has a function name. So this one is, let's say, email trigger. We can name like this. Okay, so if I name like this, I just need to change this. Okay, so let's have some meaningful name. So this one I'm saying, hey, this is a function, this piece is a function, and this is what we decorate. And this one name is send email to user. Important thing that you need to understand is when it says run and inside there's the parameters, right? This is very important. HTTP trigger. This is the one which determines what kind of trigger this function is going to be invoked. Already I told you there are a lot of web API methods. For example, let's go to this website, go and press F12, or you can also say right click and inspect. This will come. Go to the network and let's say we're going like this. Okay, You see this, there is a call invoked, and this is what called HTTP method. So this is a web API, but it is invoked via HTTPS, meaning this is like, if I, for example, this is get right. If I go here and if I try to do like this, we will not get value. 401 is coming, but you see this is the endpoint that I'm trying to reach via browser. Okay, the 401 is coming because it's not authorized, because it doesn't send the bearer token. But let's keep it short. Anything that starts with HTTPS or like any method, right, they're called HTTP trigger. You're triggering via a protocol called HTTP. That's why it's called HTTP trigger. Now coming back to this, it determines what level of authorization, function level of authorization, and what it is. Is it a get and a post? It accepts get and post, either of, but this one is not get. Basically, we are going to post some information and that information will be processed. Okay, so that is what you need to assume. Okay, now whatever logic you write inside this, it's nothing related to the Azure function. This is a pure .NET logic. You do some work. What work? Sending email. That is the work. Okay, so now I will show you how it has been written. All right, let's take a look at this logic. So again, same thing, it's a different name, it's an HTTP trigger, and logic that we write inside this, right, that's basically is going to do some work. And we will not worry about what logic is written here, because our intention of this video is to understand Azure Functions and how different Azure function works, not step by step of what .NET code that we write. But let me tell you at a high level. So in this one, we send a request, and this one is anonymous, but we can change this to Azure function. Okay, now what we do, we read the request, we convert into this format. What is this format? The user, like when you trigger an HTTP function, you're going to send all of this information, like a meeting slot time, name, user ID, purpose, some information that you're going to post to this HTTP trigger function, and it is going to take, validate, format an email. Like all of these things I will give you, don't worry about all of these things. It's just a simple HTML that we are formatting. So once you format, we will use the existing SendGrid. For SendGrid, if you don't know how to set up, there's a video in the channel, SendGrid, search for the SendGrid, and probably I will put it in the description also. Follow that to set up the SendGrid. First is 60 days, each day 100 email is free. Okay, they changed the policy. After 60 days it doesn't work. There are other options, probably we will take this in a different video, like Mailgun and some other different providers, but for now let's focus on this. It sends an email. Okay, so it sends an email and then it responds to the caller that this is done. So what else I need to know as a developer? Very important thing. You see there is something called local settings.json. You see there's something called local settings.json. The local settings.json has some properties, like how we have app settings. It has some properties, it has some information, but this local.settings.json will never be deployed in the Azure, which you need to manually place these values in the Azure, which we will see now. Okay, we will see how to configure these things over there. Okay, what else I should know? Host.json. Host.json will tell how long the functions and other things will execute and all of those information. What else I should know? There are other important things. If you look at this program.cs, we have configured few things. Basically, we have configured to read this file and add that as an environment variable. And we also have set up few things for sending email, like how you set up the Azure DI, how do you set up the DI in the web API. That's exactly, this is what we are doing. Okay, so we're setting up these things. So from a developer perspective, this is isolated version. You can go here and check. This is .NET 9 and it will tell you what SDK it is using, what version it is using. All of those things are here, packages are here. And the next thing that you need to know is this part. Other than that, you should know local settings.json will never be deployed. Don't expect any of these things to be deployed in the Azure. You need to configure it, which we will see. Now, other than that, we don't have any fancy stuff. So if I right click on this and say set as startup project, and if I run this, it will run locally. Okay. Now, how do I test? That's the next foremost important thing that everyone might ask. Okay. How do I test this? See, when you look at this as part of this demo, you might see several APIs coming into picture, but for this video, it's just only one. What are we looking at? See, these are the endpoints. Eventually, you will get all of these things, okay? But at the moment, we're looking at this one alone. Send meeting slot email, and it clearly says it's a post only, and this is where it runs. Okay, so this runs here, and how do I test this? So now I know this, right? I can copy this. But in order to test this, there is something called Postman. You can use the Postman app. Postman app is very easy, simple, where you can, instead of Swagger, you can use all of these things in Postman. Okay, this is one of the testing tool. So I install Postman. I'm opening the Postman. So after I use Postman, I can click on new and add that one. So for example, what else we can add? So I'm going to copy this. Add new HTTP request. See, it's adding empty one. I'm adding this URL, changing this to post, and we have to send something in the body, right? At the moment, there's nothing in the body. So if I try to hit this, let's see what happens. So I go here, I go to this specific function that we are referring to. I'll put a breakpoint here. So if I send this, we are hitting our locally running endpoint. Now the request is empty. So we have some exception. We could have handled it better, but basically we didn't send anything. Something went wrong. So what we do, we come here under the body, click on draw, and basically we need to send some property. Where is this property is coming? If you look at this one is expecting this kind of a model. It has meeting slot ID, username, user ID, purpose, and all of these things, right? See, email ID, purpose, status, and all of these things. So if we send this information, it is supposed to process. Let's hit on send and see what happens. So it's hitting here this time. Let's do this. Okay, we got the request. See, we have all of this request. So I can do this. I can formulate the body. I can check how it is. Okay, so this is how the email will look. Hello Karthik, this is what it is. Nice, right? Okay, now I can proceed. I can go here. I can send this. Imagine I'm sending it, okay, because that is not our testing. So I'm going to skip this and just run it. What happens? See, it responded with the 200 okay. Okay, this is what it is. So basically I could have written this in the web API itself, but I don't want it to write. I want this kind of a common thing in a separate function app where, imagine this, right? Not just this application. If you know a common endpoint, which is this kind of an Azure function, any different application that just needs to send email can utilize this. That's where this Azure Functions, HTTP Trigger Functions comes handy. And not only that, if it takes just 1 second to send, only 1 second, the billing is incurred. Okay, it doesn't run always. Whenever you call this and run, only then this will be running. So it will be sitting just like that. Okay, so now you know how Azure Functions HTTP trigger works. So now we know how to build a new function in HTTP trigger function, run it, test it through Postman. Now it's time for us to deploy this to the Azure portal and test that from there as well. Okay, so right click on this function. In the previous video, we already have set up the new Azure Function app, which is what is going to be used in this video. So right click and say publish. Okay, this is not the way to do it, but this is the quickest way that we can publish it. So it's in Azure. I choose this, and it's Azure Function, and we did build a Windows function, like Windows thing, not the Linux. So we choose this one. Next, you need to log in. I've already logged in, so it is trying to fetch all of these thing. This is the subscription name. See, it's already coming, whatever we have. Once I choose this, and when I say next, I need to set up a publish XML. Okay, so that's like I said, this is not the way to do it. We will do a CI/CD pipeline for Azure Function. It's very easy, but this is very simple to quickly deploy it over there. Okay, so it's getting configured, profile is ready. Now if I do a publish, it'll build this app and it'll publish. Okay, this is just for demo purpose. I have already published my working endpoints to one of the Azure function, but this is to show you how you need to test it. See, it's got deployed, and let's take a look. You see there is a function, and this is a function that was there and it got deployed. So when you hit on a function, you can see all of these things, function keys, invocation logs, and other stuff. So we can do a test. This is a post, and this is just a dummy function. So if I just run it, it is probably going to give a response. See, and you can see the logs coming up here. So that's how you see logs. You can also click on this logs and run it. But if you notice this, we are sending the key here. Okay, the key has to be sent here. So for example, get Azure function URL. If you look at this function URL, let's see. See, after this function URL, there is something called code followed by a code, right? So question mark code is equal to something. So basically, when you invoke a function which is protected by function level or an admin level, you need a code. If you don't send the code, for example, if you don't send the code, it is not going to work. We can't avoid it here, but we know the URL. So, let's say I run this without the code. If I run this without a code, it's giving you 401. But if I run with the code, it's giving me results. So that's how the functions are protected. Okay, so these things that you should know. If you go here, it will tell you what this function is, what it is doing based on what was written. This is nothing, so it's not showing up here, but this is a function key and all of those logs and like how many times it got invoked, who invoked this, everything is going to be shown in this invocation. And let's take a look at one of the other functions. Not this function. Let's take a look at other functions. See, these are the functions that you will eventually learn. All of these different functions you're going to learn. But at this point, this video is done. We know what is HTTP trigger function and how to run it in local, how to set up, how to run it in local, use Postman, how we can deploy this to Azure Functions quickly and test this out. Okay, alright, if you like this video, do subscribe to my channel and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!